Hey guys, it's David from Gigi's Fabric Shop, home of Juki and Junkies. And in today's video, we're going to show you how to change the oil on your Juki industrial sewing machine. So after like a year of use, maybe a year and a half, you tilt back your machine and you notice that the oil is really dirty and nasty and you're ready to change that oil out. We're going to show you how to do that. We're also going to show you how to do the regular oiling maintenance on a Juki 1181 industrial. So we're going to show you all of the different oiling spots and how to oil and set up your machine for success. So get ready to watch the video. Okay, so the first step, I'm going to show you how to drain out all the oil in your industrial Juki sewing machine. So the first thing first, obviously this is a brand new machine, so there's no oil in here, but it'll still apply the same. I'm just going to act like there's oil in this machine for demonstration purposes. So you're going to want to grab a big flathead screwdriver and you're going to loosen this big black screw. So if you have an oil pan on your industrial, this is the way you're going to do it. If you don't have an oil pan, pretty much the same concept, but maybe it's just a little reservoir that you want to change. Although reservoirs don't really get dirty because they're not as opened as this. So anyways, for this, we're just going to use this big flathead. Make sure it's a big flathead, not the smaller ones, because this little flathead screw, it can be kind of a pain to get loosened up. So make sure you have a big flathead. And once you loosen that screw, obviously you're going to want to have a canister underneath that area. There's a small little, I guess you would say, like a port where the oil is going to be flowing out. So you're going to want to make sure you have something to catch that oil. We like to use a small little bucket or something that is going to have enough volume to hold the amount of oil that's in this oil pan. Probably about 450 milliliters or larger is going to be something as how much oil is going to be falling out of here. So once you get all that oil removed from your oil pan, you're going to use a rag or something that isn't going to leave a whole bunch of fuzzies behind and just dry up this oil pan, making sure that you get all the contaminants out of there. And also, as you can see, there's like a little oil pump here. You're going to want to wipe that off with your hand and just make sure that there's no threads or material that's getting sucked up in there. So now that we have this whole area nicely and cleaned up, we're going to go ahead and put this screw back in here. And there's a little seal that you want to make sure is there as well, a little gasket. So you should have the little gasket and the flathead. You're just going to put that gasket on that flathead like that, and then we're going to, or actually you can just put the gasket on first, and then you're just going to tighten down this flathead. Okay, so now that we've successfully drained all of the oil out of the oil reservoir, we can go ahead and add the oil back. So it's important to double check and make sure that you have this flathead screw nice and hand tight. You want to tighten it down pretty tight, and also make sure that seal is properly installed so that when we refill this, there's not going to be any oil leakage coming out of the pan. So now that we have that all done, we're going to go ahead and just add some oil to the oil pan, and we're just going to fill this up till we get to the high mark, which is located right there. So just keep on filling it up. And it's important to note your 1181 and most industrials take oil number 2 or number 1 or number 7. They're all very close in viscosity, so it really doesn't matter all that much what oil it is, as long as it's a Juki genuine oil. Between 7 and 1 is usually perfect for the Juki industrial machines. The 1181 does come with the oil number 7, so that's what we're using right now, because it's a brand new machine and we're setting it up with what came with it. But we have used oil number 2 and number 1, and it works perfectly. So if you do need more oil, check the description of this video. We will have a link for more industrial oil. So now that we have the oil filled to the high mark, we know that the pan is properly filled with oil. We're inspecting for any drippage on the underneath of the machine, since we just put that screw back on and I can see that there's visually nothing dripping, so we know that's good. So now the machine is properly oiled. Now we can really just tilt the machine down and we're good to go. We have the lower of the machine all oiled, and this pump will be slurping up oil and feeding the whole entire machine. However, there is some other oiling points on this machine that we're going to show you. So we'll go ahead and flip the machine back down and we'll show you all the other spots that you want to hit with oil. One thing I want to note before we tilt the machine forward is you want to fill this little canister that comes with your machine with some oil so you can oil all the extra spots. But also, before we tilt the machine forward, I want to talk about the hook assembly and how you can control the amount of oil that goes there. So if we bring the camera over here, you're going to see that there's a screw right here, and it actually has a little indicator that says plus and minus with an arrow pointing on it, and you can actually adjust the amount of oil that is fed to the hook of this machine by rotating this screw left and right. Now from the factory it should be set up so it's pretty much good to go. However, if you notice that your hook is really dry after running your machine, or there's too much oil, you can make that adjustment here. You can also double check and see if there's too much or too little of oil by tilting your machine forward and running it at full speed, and maybe just putting a piece of cardboard underneath the hook area and seeing if there's any splashing coming from it. If there is a ton, then you probably can loosen it down a little bit. Another cool thing that you can do is after a few hours of sewing, you can kind of just tilt your machine back like this and inspect that hook and just make sure that it looks like it's well lubricated. If it's not, go ahead and turn up this a little bit, or you can physically drop some oil on the hook right around that little area right there where metal is rubbing on metal. So there you go. Let's tilt the machine forward and show you all the other spots to oil. Okay, so now that we have the machine tilted forward, we're going to go ahead and oil the 6 little oiling spots that are located on the left side of the machine. They're going to be indicated with a little red mark. So you're going to actually find there is one right here, here, and then on this side. And we'll get a little better close-up once we start oiling it. I will say that this oil reservoir dumps a lot of oil out, a little bit too much for these little oiling spots. So I'm going to actually use my tri-flow oiling pen, which has a more controlled drop. I can actually control one little drop of oil at a time, and I usually do one, and then I'll rotate that hand wheel and kind of work it in, because those joints will actually move and you can kind of see the oil slowly fall down, and then you can add another one. So we'll get a nice little close-up. There's going to be one here, one right tucked right here, one right here, which I'm going to do one drop on that one, and then there's one right back here. So once you hit all of these 6 little spots with some oil, you can always go back and wipe down excess oil on the outside with a little paper towel. And if you are interested in this nice tri-flow oiling pen, you can check the link in the description. We'll put one of these in here. We absolutely love these. They're great for domestic and industrial sewing machines, just hitting those little spots. You want to control how much oil goes there. You don't want to put too much, because then you're going to have oil all over your material. So there you go. So I wanted to just highlight this hook area one more time to kind of show you where to look to make sure that there actually is a lot of oil here. So you can see that this is the basket here, and then this is the hook of your machine that's rotating around that basket at a really high speed. And you can kind of see that there's some oil right here already, and that's how you know your hook is well oiled. If this hook isn't well oiled, your machine can dry up, causing your positioner finger to allow your basket to move, and then you can break needles, and you can cause a lot of issues by not having an oiled hook. So just make sure that your hook is well oiled, and you can kind of just examine it right there. You can also just drop a drop of oil right in that little joint, or you can turn up the oil like we talked about earlier. So just make sure that the hook is oiled. That is one of the most important spots to oil on this machine. And there you have it. We now know how to oil the Juki 1181. One other little quick step that I want to mention is there is a clear window right here, and you can actually see the oil splashing around in that area, especially if you have the RPMs turned up pretty fast. So like we have it turned up really fast right now, so you can see the oil splashing. If you read the user manual, it does say that you're supposed to run it at around 1,500 stitches per minute and actually see that oil splash up in that window, because that's how you know the pump's really throwing the oil throughout the machine. If you're sewing really slow all the time, it wouldn't be a bad idea to unthread your machine, take the material out, lift up the foot so the foot isn't grinding on the feed dog, and just run your machine pretty quick for maybe a few minutes and just allow that oil to really soak up in all the areas that that pump is supposed to be pumping it to. Because if you don't run it really fast, it won't really pump that oil throughout that machine. So it is important to do that every now and then. Another good mention is after freshly oiling all your areas, it's not a bad idea to do this every time, because you'll also see that those joints that you oiled over on this side could splash some oil out and get on your material. So it's not a bad idea to go ahead and do this every single time you kind of do a quick little maintenance on your machine, just to run it fast, make sure there's no excess oil splashing anywhere, wiping it down, and then continuing on your sewing project once you've done that a couple times. So like, every time you do your oiling, you can do that. We would recommend you check all of these oiling spots. I would probably say after every big project, or maybe every 12 hours of sewing, I would go ahead and just tilt the machine up, make sure that there's good amount of oil. Make sure that these joints look like they're well oiled. Make sure your hook's oiled. And also, a note to take is when you fill up that pan with oil and it's on that high mark, when you run the machine, oil will be taken up into this area. So you'll notice that it will fall down a little bit in that pan. So don't be alarmed if it's not perfectly at the high. It's okay if it's kind of in between. Your machine won't really like just absorb the oil. So your oil shouldn't have to be topped off all the time, but we do recommend changing out your oil after, you know, a year of sewing, maybe every 6 months if you're sewing a ton and it gets really dirty in there. But if it looks clean, just kind of like water, you're good to go. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. We try to post every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you liked it, drop a like. If you want to comment and ask some questions, leave a comment. We'll get back to you. And make sure you hit that subscribe button as we try to post every Sunday and really good information. So I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next Sunday.